Hello, everybody. It's Max with Crypto Talk now. Just how big is this partnership with Oracle for Quant? Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So, I saw this on Twitter and I thought to myself, you know what? This will be a really good piece to use for a proper Quant video, to say the least. And shout out to this person who is at SanNL11. He states, how big is the Oracle partnership for Quant and our Quant tokens? And it actually turned into a thread. So I'm going to go ahead and share this with you guys. And I like this part that he says basically. He says, first of all, when asked about interoperability, the chief architect over at the Oracle blockchain basically said this, quote, basically rely on Quant's overledger to provide interoperability with things like Ethereum or Corda. Let's take a brief moment to actually listen to this.
And we're basically relying upon them to provide this interoperability with things like Ethereum or Corda or the like. So,
All right. And then on top of that, we go a little bit more further into it. And like, Sand says right here, he says, and here he says, quote, we have multiple customers using this over ledger to integrate our blockchain platform with other blockchain networks. And, of course, we could hear a little bit more in regards to that, but it's just only 10 seconds long. But, down here also, it says this fits the timeline when Gilbert, as in Gilbert Veridian, basically came into the chat on December 21st. Oracle inquiries for Overledger technology are mooning, to say the least, where the TX token utility will follow later. And some key highlights from that is like where it says, Oracle blockchain is now interoperable, right? Since the announcement, our team have been busy dealing with incoming requests and inquiries from Oracle's clients, right? And a little bit more, how much or how many customers does Quant have via Oracle, right? That's a good question. 5, 20, 70, to be honest, we don't know. But that doesn't really matter so much in that regard. What does matter is kind of like what you see right here. Unfortunately, that's the nature of enterprise. Build more silently in other communities like what? XRP, Chainlink, Algorand, XDC, Hedera HBAR have the same problem. We rely on speculation. Another point that he, does a really good job of pointing out. One thing we do know is that Quant works with KPMG, confirmed by Oracle. KPMG is a Oracle blockchain client and also nominated as Quant FinTech Innovator. Right? How cool is that? So safe to say that Quant bagged a company with 236,000 employees who are known for using new tech in big implementations. And as we see right here, when we zoom in a little bit more, you have this. This, of course, was back on May 24th of 2022, but it's a good piece, to say the least. The 4 startups making blockchain better, connecting blockchain platforms, from Sarah Griffiths, who is a senior writer. Mentions broader adoption of blockchain has been hamstrung by the lack of interoperability. Again, think about what Quant basically is. It's just that, interoperability. Put simply, different blockchains can't talk to each other. The Quant network solves this problem with Overledger, making adoption easier and encouraging take up of this new technology. Another key highlight, this solution is used by major European firms like KPMG, back to what we were talking about just previously, right? And then we go a little bit more further into it. Stan does a good job of pointing out, the whole thing what we talk about with KPMG. It was client confirmed. It's one of the big 4 players, to say the least. 236,000 employees in 147 countries. I mean, that's talking about like literally the size of like a town or a city or suburb, right? $32 billion turned over, right? You could click more into that. I just want to drag out the video too long. This other point, and huge networks like GSBN, which is an Oracle blockchain based, and Contour, which is Corda based, are likely to use Overledger. Of course, there's a source on this, and of course, there's many banks. There's of course this key highlight. I'm going to zoom in. It says use cases across separate ecosystems, and increasingly they are using what? Multiple DLT across their organizations. Interoperability between blockchain consortiums is picking up speed, and seen in this announcement between Oracle's blockchain-based global shipping business network known as GSBN and digital trade finance network Contour based on R3 Corda. Of course, you can read more about it if you want. We're just trying to get some of the key highlights, and he did a very good job of just highlighting some of this. This other point is really good too. All we know is that their collaboration recently accelerated, and I'm 100% sure that Quant will get dozens of clients through Oracle. Well, I couldn't agree more. You see how big of a player Oracle has been in many years of, just being like a standout player for, networking, basically. Servers, you name it, right? Oracle is like the standard, if you will, when it comes to security, especially for your network, whether you're hosting a server, whether you're doing business, so on and so forth, right? So it goes on to mention, it says, and also bullish, there are still no competitors operating at Quant's levels that are good enough for Oracle's interoperability standard. Okay, I click actually on this. This is from Todd Little, Chief Architect of Oracle Blockchain Platform. He said a while back, not sure our hundreds of Oracle Blockchain Platform customers would agree. If you are still in the talking or advising phase, you are 2 to 3 years behind, at least in enterprise blockchain application. I'll take a pass on the crypto/NFT mania to own a JPEG. Some people, of course, are for it, some people aren't. I, of course, have a gaming background. I still have friends who have the attitude, basically, they refuse to buy an NFT because they look at it as buying a JPEG. They just get over that. But nonetheless, you're going to see comments like that. And then look at this. Back to this particular person that I think we just basically heard him talk. It says Juniper Research Competitor Leaderboard Blockchain Vendors. You got the disruptors and challengers, the leading challengers, and then established leaders, right? And you can have an idea how this all works, to say the least. But when you get into the leading challengers, right? You have some of these ones, like, and look at Ripple, with XRP, for instance. And then you have established leaders, right? Oracle is like right up there, right? But for them to have that partnership with Quant is just, it's nothing to bat an eye at. It's so incredibly significant. I don't think enough people have grasped that, to say the least. And then Sam does another great job of pointing this out. Possibilities are endless with Quant. The possibilities with Quant are endless, basically. And of course, that original quote was from Oracle. We already know some about the whole thing about, CBDCs coming up, especially in November, right? But here's this highlight. For instance, it says, or single country CBDC when CB ledger and the ledgers operated by payment providers or the clients are using different frameworks. Possibilities are endless, which is what makes the technology so exciting. The technology behind Quant's Overledger. We always talk about how it connects everything, but we're going to see it more and more when everything comes into full fruition. And some people may feel as though that that the start of November is just the tip of the iceberg, and it basically is just that. It is the tip of the iceberg. We haven't even delved fully into like the Target 2 system, that's going to be coming up, especially like in 2023. All the focus is on the various countries coming in November of 2022, just in a couple months. And of course, some people appreciate what he posted. I'm one of them. Another thing I want to show you guys is this. Excuse me for that. And shout out to Drunk Monk. I always, quote a lot of his tweets because he's very passionate, to say the least, when it comes to the likes of Quant. So he says Quant would be 20 to 30,000, 2 to 3 more years once the institutional money comes in. Quant will always be the best hedge against inflation, not Bitcoin. And think about that for a moment. We've heard, of course, in the past, and even as of recently, so many people said Bitcoin is the quote unquote best hedge against inflation. But there's been many cases where that's not exactly, real thing. Come close to it, and we've had moments where he felt like. But if anything, Quant, mimics a lot of what Bitcoin basically does, right? Not as far as a utility perspective, because Bitcoin doesn't have utility. But Quant basically has the utility in so many ways. People, of course, even myself, I mentioned the whole comparisons. In reality, the real comparison is getting to that market cap in 2 to 3 years, like we see here. And on top of that, the supply, right? Circulating supply is basically how we get, and of course, the total supply. So I would basically agree with Drunk Monk in regards to this. And for those of you guys who are just maybe watching some of this for the first time, you're thinking there's just no way. There is definitely a way, and that is, once the switch gets turned on, we always throw around that term. I'm not the only one that feels that way. But once that switch gets turned on with ISO 222 compliant coin/tokens, that's how we basically get there. Because if anything, like I will say this, shout out to like Mike Cornwell, aka Crypto Mike. He's outlined it a few times, and that is, once some of this institutional money, or once some of these countries' debts, I mean, look at our country, what, $28 billion in debt. What about when we apply that and bring that over to crypto? You may think that's a bad thing, but if anything, all of this money will be put on what? The new modern digital ledger. Who is the quote unquote king of these digital ledgers? Quant, the overledger, literally written for you. So there's, of course, that. On top of it, shout out again to Drunk Monk. He states, and I agree with him. I remember hearing some of these terms, because I remember buying Bitcoin for the quote unquote Silk Road in 2013. Looking at the Silk Road, there's a whole huge scandal and so on. It's kind of like people looked at Bitcoin was being used for bad purposes, but at the end of the day, it did, bring in a lot of media attention and put more eyes on crypto, and that's a whole other discussion itself. But like he mentions, I remember buying Bitcoin for the quote unquote Silk Road in 2013 in high school. It was a few hundred for a couple Bitcoin, and that's true. People didn't even realize where that went. But at the time, even I underestimated Bitcoin. Moral of the story, Quant will surprise a lot of people once utility is used globally, and Quant has only 9 to 10 million tokens. Yeah. I'm glad he basically posted it. I mean, this guy said 14 million, but talking about when we get to, where some of the supply drops down. On top of that, shout out to this person, John. He states, when Quant has the market cap of basically Bitcoin, it says 28,000 per Quant. It's a 302x. Reaches the market cap of Ethereum, that would be 143x. Cardano 13x, XRP 13x, Solana 8x, right? And then we see this. Apologize. I feel like I'm almost over this. I'm gonna go see wrote doctor within the next couple days. But anyway, you see this with the Overledger, an enterprise operating system that interconnects blockchains, enterprise platforms, and networks. Some of us know this, some of us don't. But like you see right here, interoperable, connect any network to any network without overhead or limits. Hyper decentralized applications that run and store data on multiple blockchains. But if you've never seen it before, it's absolutely like just monumental to say the least. Multi-chain apps, like you see right here. Here's where the overledger kicks in. You can see where mentions some of the existing networks, and you got platforms, enterprise systems, applications. You got the left side, enterprise permission blockchains, right? You got the Hyperledger, right? Corda, we just talked about them. Heck, even JP Morgan Chase's Quorum, right? And heck, there's Ethereum, of course, XRP's Ripple, so on and so forth, right? And then, of course, there's public permissionless blockchains like Bitcoin, Stellar, Ethereum, IOTA, EOS. Then, of course, some of the other blockchains like, the big player, which is Binance. I'm not as familiar with Neo as some of you guys are. Of course, I'm familiar with Cosmos, Polkadot. Not too familiar with AION, but just seeing how Quant, um, their technology connects all of this. I mean, it's basically the utility of utility, right? We're always talking about, does your crypto have tremendous utility? And there's Quant. Just a little bit more. We just covered that. Now, I like this state. This is from Nabreb00. I feel like this all the time, because whether it's on a recording, people I talk to in person, whether it's colleagues, and especially, people in the comments on our live show, is the Max and Larry show for Crypto Talk Now, or it's just me on my own, or, Larry on his own, whatever the case be. We run into people quite a few times, especially myself, who feel as though, Max, I don't want to get into Quant because it's too expensive. I'd rather spend $105 on this low cap project and see it potentially do like a 100x. And I get where you're coming from, but if you see the vision in some of those things like that, especially the meme one, why wouldn't you see the potential with something like this? Again, it's not financial advice. I can't give you official financial advice, but I also like people to recognize, for a lot of us, we missed the boat on Bitcoin. And look at Quant compared to Bitcoin. Yeah, there's a lot of similarities, but the only similarities basically are the supply and the market cap, or not the market cap, the supply and the circulating supply and the total supply, right? And you look at the potential where Quant could be. It's like even at $104.70, down the road, if this blew up to like 20 or 30,000, some people got it well past 100,000. I'm one of them. I think to myself, like, why wouldn't I want to throw in or dollar cost average DCA into this? Nobody's saying that you can't have some of those other things, and I get the debate, but my thing is, he's right. Not that late to the party, but I finally got my own first Quant. And my thing is, again, not financial advice, but make that decision for yourself. See the potential, see the utility that's already there, especially already in the bear market, right? And establish your position for Quant. I've also met other people. Shout out to, for instance, Crypto Winner. If you happen to be watching this, he's mentioned a few times that, what he'll do is, it's his own way of DCAing. Who says you have to own a full Quant every paycheck? You could do something in which, like, maybe you get like 3/4 of a Quant or half a Quant, but whatever the case be, enter a position. Be glad that you did, right? So shout out to this person. He got himself one full Quant. And you know what? If you got a dollar cost average, like just like once a month, let's face it, you did that over a year. It won't exactly be 12 Quant, I mean, the thing could skyrocket, but make that position, to say the least. All right, a little bit more. Quant always innovating. Yeah, absolutely. New Quant Overledger update, bringing more security fixes and enhanced scalability. They keep building even in the bear market, right? And that's crucial. Why would you want to be a part of something that's only going to build when the market's? That wouldn't make sense, right? You got to build for good times and bad. This is shout out to Crypto Nerd. He says, boom, building constantly regardless of bull or bear market. Right. It's just pounding it home just a little bit more. It says the Quant Network team are heading to Cebos. We can help your organization with blockchain interoperability, digital assets. Again, so much focus on the digital assets, right? Because of what's going to happen with ISO 222. So digital assets, payments, commercial, stable coins, and CBDCs. Again, CBDCs is going to be like probably the biggest topic other than the metaverse for late 2022, especially going into 2023. Should we get a meeting in the diary? Yeah. Is ready for digital assets? Absolutely. Right. And of course, if you're more interested in this particular event, it's going to take place October 10th through the 13th in Amsterdam. It says, let's meet at Cebos. People call it Cebos. I don't know what the actual correct pronunciation is. Doesn't really matter. This guy, John, is at Site Gains. He says, in 6 months, Quant has moved from 70th to 42nd by market. 28 positions, 6 months. Let that sink in. Yeah, let it sink in. A lot of people say this is too expensive, so on and so forth. Is it really? Because, I mean, if this goes to, let's for instance, say, 5,000, 10,000, some of these crazy levels, other people said, 25,000, or heck, even my, hope of a future prediction of, 103 plus thousand. Heck, Mike Cornwell said like over $1 million, right? So is $104 really all that too expensive, right? And just to verify that, right? Quant sitting at 42. And basically, yeah, look at this, 42. Yeah, so that is accurate. It did jump quite a few spots, to say the least, right? So then there's this, before we wrap up, and says, we all say we wish we could have invested in Bitcoin when it was 100. Well, Quant is roughly around the $100 mark. I mean, it's sitting at 100, about, close to 108, right? But it's just that. We all, of course, wish, you may be the type of person watching this. I don't know. I mean, but for most of us, we're not the type of person that got in at 100. I originally got into Bitcoin around, I think it was like 2016. I don't even remember what level that was at the time. I could, of course, buy a full Bitcoin. But at the time, I think I bought like, say, $300 of it. I watched it, of course, go up dramatically in the last bull market of late 2021. But of course, we all wish that. A lot of us, I feel, as though are going to wish that we got into Quant even at 100. And some people, of course, got into it at the $40 mark. And, let's face it, they swing trade it and so on. That's not me. Quant could go up to 200. I'm still investing in it for the long term. So, with that said, everybody, that is it in regards to today's Quant video. Covers some things, of course, some of you guys already know about. But the main emphasis is understanding how big it is as far as the partnership with Oracle. That should be the main takeaway. And of course, some of these other things are great to mention as well. But Quant, we all have our reasons for why we are getting into it. For me personally, like I mentioned, I'm in it for the long term. There is always going to be that person who's into it for the short term. And that's just how it is sometimes with crypto. But with that said, thanks for watching today's video in regards to Quant. Like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. All have a blessed day, and we'll see you on the next one.